Hey everybody, happy Wine Wednesday. Ooh, Holly, what kind of mug is that? What's that say?
I found this recently in a thrift store and it's my favorite colors. So it says don't let anyone ever dull your sparkle.
Oh, love it. Love
I
it.
just thought it was cute and it's good for cocktails. It's insulated. I got it for a couple bucks. It
Heck
keeps a
yeah.
drink cold like all freaking day. So good score.
Nice. And I've got my painted seahorse glass that's actually a picture of my seahorse and I'm sipping on Pinot Noir. Guys, this week is just open chat. So if you join and you have questions, ask away. If not, we're just going to talk about whatever seahorsey topics we come up with. I do have Ray and Holly with me. Sophie is not here tonight because she's driving home from her vacation that you guys hopefully got a peek of last week. Um, but yeah, so tonight's just open chat. So any questions, ask away. Holly, you said, did you have anything to share this week?
Um, Not much really. I still have Sadie. She hasn't eaten now in 3 weeks, but still have her. She's hanging in. I did my water changes today, and she actually did a dance while I was doing the water change. And she'll come. Sometimes she goes next to one of her dishes and sits down there. And so I put a little food in there just to see, yeah, if one of these times she'll eat, but nope,
So
not at
real
all.
quick on Sophie, Ray, I'm curious your thoughts. Is this in your mind an old age thing, a weak snick thing, or um, what are your thoughts? Holly, is Sadie is she thinning out?
Without being able to see them, I wouldn't hazard a guess.
No,
It's
no, she
something that
looks
you have
good.
to you have to be there and you have to go through the experience and know what is different and notice those differences and then come up with an assessment. So I think she's decided based on what she has seen that it's end of life and it's not due to any infection or anything. So
Right.
she all she can do is wait it out. But it takes a long time for a seahorse to die once they stop eating, and people don't
I
understand
know.
that.
I know. And it's rough too because and sorry guys, if you're someone who's just getting started with seahorses, we're talking about years down the line, years when they finally get old and they stop eating and they're just kind of slowly passing into their next life, into not being with us anymore. We'll leave it there.
Mhm.
But for anybody new, you shouldn't experience any of this. If your seahorse stops eating, then that's something we have to talk about completely differently. But in this case, the only thing that bugs me, Holly, is the fact that she went to the dish like she wanted to eat. Which,
They
okay,
all well.
my mom passed of cancer and she wanted to eat, but even towards the end she would tell me food doesn't taste good anymore, and then it hurt to swallow and stuff like
I
that
mean,
just
I
because.
don't know. I'm guessing it's a combination of things because the same thing happened with her mom and her brother went
Right.
the same way. But remember, I did the freshwater dips and all that.
No,
It,
I
it
wouldn't
didn't.
suggest
It
putting her
didn't.
through it.
It didn't change anything, And she's 5 years old now, so I mean, she probably has weak SNCC. She's probably got a ciliate overload. She probably has an infection to go along with everything. She doesn't show any signs of anything, but a lot of times the things with them I think are internal, so you can't see.
Right.
And
If she had a
really,
ciliate overload, you would have seen it on the dip.
Well, she didn't
Dan,
she didn't dip Sadie.
I didn't dip Sadie. I chose not to because that
Oh,
I did her mom when her mom had the same situation. I gave her a freshwater dip and lost her like right away after.
Yeah.
So I think the stress of it, and
For
I
an
feel
older seahorse,
to
guys.
be
If you're talking about
losing her
younger,
anyway. I don't think it would change anything,
sure.
honestly. So
And for anybody watching, there was no judgment on Holly because again, we're talking about a 5-year-old seahorse.
she's
So
been around a long time, and I
yes,
think she's got something going on and just decided she's done for whatever
yeah,
reason. She made
yep.
the decision to stop eating. So I have to
Not to
respect
compare
her
fish to
choice,
humans, not to compare
and
fish to humans, but
mhm,
same situation with my mother. I
mhm,
was like, we got to fight all this. You got to stay. And she was like, I'm done. I'm
yeah,
done. I'm ready to
yeah,
be done. Leave me alone.
yeah,
And that's it is what it is. Putting
mhm,
them through a bunch of treatments and medicines and such when they're ready to be done is not a
mhm.
good
My
thing.
wife
I
got
agree.
really upset when people were trying to keep her alive at the end.
What was it?
What's that?
My wife got right upset with people that were trying to keep her alive at the end.
Sure.
She
Mhm,
was ready to go and she wanted to
Sure.
go. And here's all
mhm.
these people running around trying to keep her alive.
Yeah,
Well,
I
and
can
guys, we're not trying to
understand
make
that.
this like a super depressing White Wednesday.
Mhm,
Because again, I know where my mother is, and
mhm,
Sadie's had a really good life. She's lived 5 years.
mhm,
If we're talking about new seahorses, I just want to keep repeating myself that
mhm,
there's a difference. If you have newer seahorses and there's a problem, then it's not obviously old age.
mhm,
And, it's time to do all the treatments and we can help you with that. But in Holly's case, Sadie's lived a good life. She's 5 years
mhm,
old.
mhm,
She's just,
mhm.
and she's still dancing and she's
Yeah, now
still,
and then. I haven't, I mean, she's pretty mellow most of the time, but sometimes she'll decide to go hang out next to Dandy, or, go to
sure.
another hitch and hang out. And today was the first day I've seen her dance in a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was nice to see. But she
And when
looks
and after
fine. She's
after
not skinny. She's not. She looks totally fine.
and this is a
But
huge seahorse, guys. I mean,
mhm,
huge seahorse. So I think we've talked about it before, but your plans
mhm,
once we go down to just one is that
mhm.
you're going to combine, right?
Yeah, because I have two in that tank. There's her and Dandy, who, funny enough, Dandy's bounced back and is now eating 3 meals a day again, and
Of
and
course.
and doing all right. But the plan is, as soon as one seahorse goes in either tank, because I have the 75-gallon with four seahorses as well. So as soon as I lose one somewhere, then I'm going to combine them all
My
into.
goodness, what are you going to do with your front room?
Well, actually, that's the tank I want to combine them into.
Oh, okay.
Because the reason why is because that room's more climate controlled.
Gotcha.
If you remember, see, the room that I have my 75-gallon in is an add on to my house. So
Yes. Okay.
it's not close to the wood stove in winter. It's kind of, so it gets colder in this room. Um, we did install a swamp cooler in this room now that helps it stay cooler in the summer. But generally, this room has lots of windows you can see behind
Yep.
me. So it gets hotter in the summer too. So this room is less climate controlled
Yep.
than my living room. So that's why I want to keep that tank going and close down this one.
And you'll have so much more room.
Yeah, I'll
That'll be
have
great.
more room in here. And then also, this tank is the one that has the overflow boxes that hang on back.
Yes. Yes.
And so the other tank just works better because it's pre-drilled and all that, and it's acrylic, so it's super strong. It's molded, not seams like my old one that split apart was. So I just feel like that one's a better choice. And then for a while, I'll save my equipment in case something goes down while I still have the seahorses. I'll have a replacement for it.
Yeah.
And then when that's done, probably keep that acrylic tank and then
Because you'll come back. We always come back to seahorses. We always do.
likely someday, as long as I can still lift salt
Yes.
buckets.
Sure.
Getting older here, but I'm
Right.
working out now, so I'm stronger. Maybe I can keep
So,
lifting their
so
stuff.
You're,
a good,
hey, you're younger than what I was when I started Seahorses.
Yeah, there's that too. There's
so,
that too. So I
so a good
probably can.
question. So a good question to cover real quick, for anybody that does come and watch later that's new is, if you could start over tomorrow and you
Mhm.
could set up a brand new system. I know we've talked about this before, but just since we're on the topic,
Mhm.
what are the things that through your experiences with multiple tanks you
Mhm.
would do differently or you would set up in a certain way?
Well, I would start up with the system that I eventually put together. I would have waited to start until I had all the right equipment and stuff because when I started, I only had um, like hang on back type stuff. I didn't have the big cyclone skimmer. I had a little hang on back skimmer. In the
Yeah,
past, I've had the canister filter. I just didn't have all the equipment, like the chiller made a big difference when I got that. And I think I would have had an easier time all along if I would have held out and
and
got
set up right.
all the best stuff and set up right from the beginning.
Yeah,
And it wouldn't be cheap. See, the thing is, I started out on the cheap with not much money. By the time I put all the right equipment and things together, probably a couple $1,000s in.
sure.
Oh boy.
But it was easier in
Or
the
you
end.
become a DIY person like Ray and you just make things work
Yeah,
and
but
make
I
things for
can't
yourself.
build a skimmer
Yeah,
and all
me
of that.
either.
That would have been harder for me.
Right,
I would have started easier. See, I kind of started on the do it yourself side, and it just made things harder for me.
right, me too.
And when I finally got the right equipment and the things that I needed, it made the whole experience a lot easier and smoother going, I think. Less
So
problems.
go through real quick. What are the pieces of equipment that you're saying you would have started with?
So for me, a nice big sump, um, the protein skimmer, good size protein skimmer. Mine is like 4 times tank size. It's made to skim. Um, what else? The chillers. I started out with heaters, but I still have my same heaters. They still do great. I have inline heaters.
Hmm.
So it kind of depends on your climate. But if you need anything to make your tank safe in the climate where you live,
Yep.
I highly recommend doing that from the start. If you need a chiller, get the chiller first before you start the tank. If you need heaters, get those. We don't want heaters in the tank because they can hitch to them and get hurt. But you can put your heater in the sump if it fits, or you can do like me and use an inline heater where the water goes through the heater and then into the tank. So
Yes.
it's not in the tank with them.
Just like
But I would
kind of
say
like
your
the UV skimmers.
filtration,
Or
all that, go big. Go bigger with tank size, things like that, than you originally think you need to, because you're going to want it in the end. Like if you start, you can do 30 gallons, like I said, for a pair, but I watched my seahorses get big.
yes.
And seeing how much they enjoy having the whole big tank to explore and
Yes.
I recommend if you can go big, do it. You won't
Well,
regret it.
well, and that's the thing is that you can't, nobody's saying you have to have all
Yeah,
these things just to keep seahorses.
yeah,
Just understand that there's a give and take,
yeah.
right?
And
So,
there's things that'll make the experience better for you. And if you can do it, do it. You won't regret it.
right. If you can afford to,
Hmm.
like, I don't need a chiller in my area. I've
No, in
never
your
needed a chiller.
climate, you don't.
So it does depend on where you live, but also, like, the skimmer is just a given. You need a good skimmer. You
Mhm,
need to make sure that you're covering the filtration aspect of things, biological, chemical, mechanical. But you can do that in different ways,
mhm.
including doing a 30-gallon and doing massive water changes. It's
Yeah.
not the best way. It's not what we recommend, but you can do it.
Oh, yeah.
I'm still keeping the 40-gallon all-in-one. That doesn't have a huge sump or any of that. You can
Mhm,
do it.
mhm,
Just what Holly's saying, and I agree with
mhm,
100%, is if you're serious about keeping seahorses and you plan to do it long term and you have plans like breeding or just having a long term seahorse tank, it
mhm,
is beneficial to try to set up
mhm,
for that long term, right?
mhm,
Because you could do like either of us did, where, I started with a 29, I had too many seahorses, I lost one. And then I figured out about organics. I met people like here on my Wednesday, talked to everyone, figured things out, added a sump, added a skimmer,
mhm,
added an algae scrubber. More success. Then I had more tanks and this, that, and the other. But even when I was at the height of my seahorse keeping, I still had 30-gallon tanks
mhm,
with no sump, with no skimmer,
mhm,
because my major main tanks
mhm.
where my forever seahorses lived, and I'll explain that in a second, but where my forever seahorses lived would have all the cool equipment or the hand,
Yep.
DIY equipment. Ronald Chinners made me an algae scrubber,
Mhm,
whatever. But I'm saying I would make sure that those tanks could run even if I had to miss a water change or even
mhm.
if I went on vacation or whatever. But I would have multiple species that I was just starting out with, that I was trying different things with, that would be in just a 30-gallon. And I had to do massive water changes
Yep.
and do the maintenance myself. So
And
the
that's
point
how it
is,
went with
I
the
think,
juveniles. When
well,
I
I
was
think
raising the juveniles, just like I had to change the water in that tank every other day.
Right. So I think the real key thing that I'm trying to say to get across is you can do whatever you want. But if you want to be successful,
Mhm,
either take Holly, and I agree with it, her advice to set up properly and get everything you need for your forever tank, or make sure you're comfortable with understanding that seahorses are messy. They eat more, they poop more, and you're going to have to do more water changes than the average tank to keep it up, to keep it clean. Would you agree with that, Ray?
Sorry, I was reading.
He was ignoring us. What do you know?
What was the
um,
question?
just I don't even know. I don't even want to
I
repeat
would
it.
say she
I
was
mean, it was
just
just
saying that would you agree that you have to make sure and provide like really
it's a
good
give or take.
filtration
Either
from
you
the
have
start,
all the
or
best
you're going to have
equipment.
to do more water changes to clean up after
You
them.
have to
Well, see,
understand
for
that
me, I don't mind
seahorses,
doing water changes.
right? No, but
Exactly. That's what
time
she
out,
was
time out,
saying. It's
time out.
one or the
The
other.
question was, or the point that I was trying to make was, seahorses are dirtier. They
Hmm.
eat more. They poop more. They're more delicate in the aspect of they'll contract diseases or bacterial infections or whatever more easily if the tank is not kept up. So you have to keep it up more than you would a reef or a freshwater tank. But you can do that with equipment and never do more work. Or if you do a smaller tank without the equipment, you have to do more work. So
Hmm.
just understanding that big idea.
The trade-offs, yeah.
Yeah, and understanding that they need more than average fish. Um, but you can compensate for it, or you can compensate for it either with equipment or with
Yeah,
yourself.
or you're going to change more water, like I
Yes.
did when I was raising the juveniles, because I didn't have the best tank set up for them. I had a hang on back filter and a 29-gallon tank available. So that's what they grew
Yeah.
up in. So they needed
Right.
water changes every day.
Yep. Yep. So, uh, going off into left field here, but that's okay. Welcome, Refresh. Refresh wants to know any tips for dwarf seahorses. I'm all the way new to keeping seahorses, but I have lots of knowledge of macros, etc. Tank sits at 7.1 gallons rimless, not an AIO.
Mhm.
Ray, do you want to start us off?
Okay, for dwarf tanks, uh, there's a lot of complexities that you have to take into consideration. First of all, being that they're so small. Second, being that they only eat live foods, which you have to enrich with a high DHA component. And thirdly, that food density in their tank has to be sufficient, like a cloud of Artemia in there, so that they can snick it without leaving their perch, which is most dwarfs prefer to have the ability to snick when the food comes by. Some of them will hunt, but that's not the norm. And the ones that hunt don't want to do the hunting all the time. Because of those specific needs, it's not suitable to have corals or macro um, in the tanks with the dwarf. It's basically just a simple setup, and you need to go small and size up according to what the growth gets to. In other words, if you're going to start with, say, two or four, do it in a little goldfish bowl. If you're going to look in the range of maybe 10 or 12, do it in a 1.5 gallon tank.
And you said, Ray, you said that's because making sure the
So
food
you can keep the
density.
food density
Okay.
reasonable without having to overproduce food for a larger tank and still keep the same density. Like it's a waste of food trying to keep the
And
density
that
up.
I think you've talked about this before, and that's because if you put five dwarfs in a 20-gallon tank
Mhm.
and you try to make sure that the food ends up a cloud, like you're talking about they need, that giving that much food to that tank is just gonna make the organics go crazy, first of all,
Yeah.
and second of all, they won't hunt it. So it's just making it's feeding nothing and making a
It's a
bigger
lot.
mess.
It's a lot
And
of
even
waste.
if even if you thought about leaving a tank full of brine shrimp, enriched, uh, newly hatched brine shrimp in there, they lose their nutrition so quickly that by the time they got eaten, it wouldn't make any difference, anyways, right? Talk on
Yeah,
that.
with the dwarfs, it's preferable to remove the previous food that's remaining in there and put your newly enriched food in after you've removed the old stuff. If you just add the new stuff, then you don't know if the dwarfs are feeding on newly enriched or whether they're feeding on the stuff that's already lost that nutrition. Um, and you were talking about a 7.1 gallon would be too big, in my opinion, especially at the start. But depending on your success with raising them and how long you stay with it, then eventually you might be able to use that. But I
Mhm.
suggest starting small and then working up. Um, I worked up to a 5 gallon and I had no problem with running around 50 at a time in that 5 gallon. But if I only had, say, 15 or 20, then I would do it maybe in a 2.5 or even a 1.5. And the main thing is keep it simple, because one of your best things that you can do keeping dwarfs, do large water changes very frequently. And that's one of the ways that you can keep the water quality sufficient so your dwarfs aren't getting diseased. You don't want a heater in the tank. Um, and I prefer just a simple tank, and I prefer to use open-ended air lines for water movement and aeration of the tank. Um, I don't I don't like using those foam filters or any kind of filter like that that's going to be, say, air operated or even a more powerful mechanical operated one. That being said, I like to use the very small mini filter to remove, or I had it hooked up to a timer. So when I put new food in, I would set the timer to start at about 2 hours time. And that would gradually filter out the live food. So most of it, if not all of it, would be gone by the time your next feeding comes around. And then it's a case of you clean out the filter, feed the fish, reset the timer, and go through the process all over again.
I have a question, Ray. What would you use for a mini filter? Do you mean like a hang on back, or do you have an example?
I'm trying to think. I think I had it here from the last discussion. I don't know where I put it right at the moment here.
Yeah, I'm kind of interested to see what you would use.
Oh, it's very small.
I mean, does it go inside of the tank or
Yeah,
hang on the back,
goes
or
inside with suction cups. And the
so
suction
kind of like what we use for our the what do we call it? The pre-filter or whatever we use to suck out stuff in our big Seahorse tanks.
I don't
What
even know
is
what you're talking about.
Yeah, with the
I
thing
never
we
use things like
use.
that. Like in my tanks, as you know, I prefer the Hagen power heads with quick
That's
filters.
what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. You know how you stick that on a
No,
filter
this is a lot
inside the
smaller.
tank?
This is a lot smaller.
Is it that same kind of thing though, just a
No,
small version?
no, it's just it's basically a rectangular type. Uh,
Is it like a box shape?
yeah, it's rectangular and it tapers slightly as it goes downwards, but that's
Okay.
only to make it convenient to drop there's cartridges you can put down inside of it.
Yeah, because I've seen those. They're like a box with a cartridge that goes in it. So that's the
But
kind
for
you're
me,
talking about?
I preferred to leave the cartridge out, and I fastened those, uh, what do you call them? The pieces that I use in the quick filters.
Oh, the sponges.
No, they're not sponge though.
Yeah, the scouring pads though,
Yeah, the
like,
starting
right?
pad.
Yeah.
I take a small piece of that and put over the intake. This way, it's not sucking in the
Uh-huh.
dwarf, especially if you have fry there. But the Artemia will get sucked and stick to it because they don't have the power to resist it.
To swim away. Gotcha.
When I would change it, I would dip a net in the tank and put it underneath this thing and then lift the whole thing out with the net under so that
Hmm.
when there's no more suction being applied there, I'm not releasing all the Artemia back into the tank again.
Hmm. So when you would do your water changes on a dwarf tank, do you just move the dwarfs to another fish bowl filled with fresh water, or did you actually drain it with them in it and then resupply water?
Well, depended. Like initially, when I had fewer seahorses, I would drain it because I could control my siphoning to siphon out the crap that I wanted. But
Uh-huh.
if a dwarf happened to get close, then I could evade it. But once I got up to around 50 in the tank, then it was easier then to sit there and scoop them out. I didn't
Mhm.
have to get them all out, but I would take water out of that tank
Uh-huh.
and scoop them out, put them in that water, and
Mhm.
then do the vacuuming of the crap that's in there.
Mhm.
And with the lower numbers in there, then it was easy to miss when you're siphoning. It was easier to miss sucking up any of them.
Mhm.
I won't say that I never did suck up any. It's happened the odd time,
Oh,
but
I've sucked up plenty of seahorses in my day.
the thing is,
Most of the ones I raised, I think, have taken some rides through the tubing.
it's easy enough if you do suck up a dwarf. uh, Whatever container you're siphoning the stuff in, it's easy to remove them from there anyway.
Yeah,
I'm over here
yeah.
laughing my butt
I
off.
did
Sorry,
plenty
guys.
of that with the baby erectus seahorses. Like I said, I'm pretty sure all of the ones that made it to adulthood took a ride at some point.
I had a minor crisis. I dumped my wine on accident, so I had
Oh
to
Jaden's
clean it
no.
up.
asking about
Sorry.
a Climax Slim Flow hang on back. Well, first of all, a hang on back is going to be a bigger filter than what you want to use.
Mhm.
But being saying that, I have no idea what a Dimex Slim Flow hang on back is. But any hang on back I've seen is going to be more flow than you want. And you need
I
something that you can modify so you're not going to suck the dwarfs up into it, but you'll be able to suck the Artemia to the filter pad.
I think I may have one of what you're talking about, Ray. So I'm going to disappear for a minute and grab it if I can
Okay.
find it. I'll
And
be
and I
Okay.
right
have a
back.
question for refresh. If you don't run any type
Call
of
him Jaden.
filtration, huh?
Call him Jaden.
Okay, James,
Jaden. Jayden.
Jaden.
Yeah, he posted it there.
Okay, sorry. All right, Jaden, sorry. I was gone cleaning up wine. But what I was going to say is if you should never say in any seahorse tank you don't want to run any type of filtration because your rock and sand is filtration. Your macros are filtration, right? So you're just doing it the natural way or trying to. Um, with dwarves in macros. So I've never kept dwarves, just to be honest and upfront. Ray is more the expert on dwarfs, but
The
I've raised
problem is
fry.
it's hard enough seeing your dwarfs anyway.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
if first of all, if you have much rock in there, you hardly ever see them. And
right.
if you have macro, that makes it more difficult too. So if you have artificial hitching and bare bottom tank and minimal amount of hitching and so on in there, that's your best way to be able to observe the activity. But a
So
wave maker
so
for sure you don't want in with a dwarf tank.
So I would say too that I haven't done dwarfs seahorses, but Dan of Seahorse Source always used to say that a dwarf seahorse tank is just like a fry tank. I mean, like just like they're all the
Yeah.
needs are the same, everything's the same. Okay, so in my fry tanks, I've done it multiple different ways. I've done tank transfer where I'm just changing the tank every day. I've done big bucket systems where I've got huge sumps underneath with equipment. I've tried to do natural. I've tried to do artificial. I've tried it all. Obviously, every person's experience is different. So I can't tell you this is the way. But I will say, I'm not going to answer that call. I will say that when we're talking about dwarfs or fry, um, you can do it multiple different ways, but you just have to be careful about going too natural Because like Ray said, if you're using all natural stuff for filtration, you're running the risk that anything comes in on that, whether it be sand, rock, macros, whatever. And when I tried I did my original fry, my first batch that was successful to an extent. I'll tell you the extent in a moment. I put them into a very small, I think 10-gallon macro tank that I just was growing macros. It had sand, it had a little bit of rock, and it had macros. And I put the fry in there because I wasn't prepared. And I was trying to figure out how to feed them with the brine shrimp because you got all this stuff in the way everywhere. And then I can just tell you I had so many problems out of that batch of fry. And again, to be fair, it was the first batch I even tried to raise of fry. But I only got one to live. One out of hundreds. And so I don't suggest natural and macros for dwarfs. Now, listen, if you put together the tank and you're extremely successful, you need to come back here and share with us, right? Because I'm not saying you can't do it. I'm just saying the natural method with dwarfs and fry often comes with a lot of problems that you have to overcome. Would you agree, Ray?
Yeah. And part of that is getting used to doing the hatching and the enriching and
Of the
realizing
Artemia.
that you can enrich them for the first 24 hours because they don't have a digestive tract.
Right.
And you don't want to feed them. Some people like to feed them when they're newly hatched, and that's fine in an emergency. But when they're in the instar 1 stage, the carcass is very tough and very hard to digest. And while it has fatty acids and protein, it does not have the fatty acid they need. That yeah, the DHO.
DHA. Yeah.
Yeah, and so only use it in an emergency. So
Well,
basically,
and that goes along with the point I was making earlier that if you're talking about trying to set up a natural dwarf seahorse tank and then you try to feed the dwarves, you're going to have to put in a lot of food to make sure that they get it. And especially if you don't have a lot of flow in the tank, then you've got brine or Artemia that are losing their nutrition by the minute. They're hiding, whatever, dying, creating more waste. And then even if the dwarf seahorses eat them later, like if the Artemia survive for 48 hours, say, in the tank. Well, and then a dwarf seahorse goes up and eats one. It doesn't have the nutrition they need anymore. And, it could have all sorts of issues, I would say.
okay, he wants to know more about the DHA. I'm
Okay.
not sure, Jaden, are you familiar with any of the fatty acids? Um, EPA is a common one, but there is EPA in a lot of foods. But the problem is DHA is a component. It is a fatty acid, and it's a component that seahorses have need of. They are unable, like some creatures are, to manufacture it themselves. Some
Right.
uh, can take EPA and make DHA out of it. Seahorses don't have that capability. They have to get it in their food that they eat. And
No,
because,
and I want to interrupt real quick because I want to say, Ray, you got a little scientific there, but you ended up making a great presentation of the knowledge because basically seahorses can't turn food into what they need the way other fish can, is the bottom line. Go ahead.
okay, um, that DHA isn't present in Artemia, and for that reason, we have to enrich it. And that means not only learning to hatch out these Artemia to begin with. You then have to grow them out for another 24 hours, and then you have to enrich them. Now, they can be gut loaded with, you put them in with new water, new enrichment for a period of 12 hours. That will gut load them. Now, if you take after the 12 hours and take them out of there, put them in new water again and new enrichment, and go a further 12 hours, that by that time, the enrichment is now becoming assimilated into their flesh. So they're much more nutritious at that point. If you're in a bind, okay, do it the quickest way. The 12-hour one will at least have them gut loaded. So when the seahorses eat them, uh, they're they will have the guts. Um,
But
they
I
will.
think overall, Ray, I think the real point you just made and are doing a good job of making is that if you're gonna do fry or Zostre, dwarf seahorses, then they have to have the live foods. They need this added. We have to add this nutrition to their diet, and to make sure that they get it, you have to set up in a certain way. Correct?
Yeah.
Well, so I think he's wondering what you would use. So isn't it? It's Celcon
Well, see, it
something?
depends on where you are. There's Celco and Celcon, and one is a piddly thing, and I don't remember which is which now.
I
Um,
gotta take this, guys. I'll be right back.
but the thing is, the Celcon actually will come in different versions, and they do have a high DHA version. The unfortunate part is most of the Celcons are uh,
They're
emo-
big, right?
they're emulsions, and as such, they don't keep very long. And the problem with stores, you go to a store and get it, half the time it's sitting on a card, on a shelf, or on a peg
Uh
when
huh.
it should be refrigerated. And you have no idea how long it's been sitting there out of
Yeah.
refrigeration. And once you get it, the odds are you're not going to use it all before it turns on you.
Yeah, because it comes big, right? And
And
you
if you
only
get
need
the
a
Cel-
tiny
if you
bit.
can get the Celcon DHA powder, then you can store that powder in the freezer almost indefinitely. Just take it out, take small portions out to keep in a fridge, enough to get you by for a few days, and be able to, yeah, make use of the stuff that's thawed out that way. Um,
So it sounds like he is familiar with Celcon and he lives in Utah. So he has a place that has tons of fish food ingredients. So I
by
think the main challenge is to get, because the size the bottle is or the size you get is always way more than you need. So it expires fairly fast, right? Is that the
Yeah.
catch?
Now, he's talking about brine shrimp direct, which I had a lot of experience with, and
Mhm.
until 9/11, which
Oh,
ended up
yeah.
destroying, like the cost of everything after 9/11 was just ungodly trying to get it across the border, and I could
Yeah.
no longer get it overnighted once 9/11 happened. You can't
I
get stuff
used
overnighted
them
in
for
Canada.
my stuff. When I was raising my fry, I used brine shrimp direct, and
Okay,
they
but
were
the thing is, brine shrimp direct makes up food both for freshwater and for saltwater. And one of the components they put in a lot of their food is Schizochytrium algae. So you can talk to them and ask if you can buy portions of this Schizochytrium algae, and that is DHA. And you can take that and mix that with brine shrimps. Uh, yeah, green powdered algae. What?
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Their food,
spirulina. They're
spirulina.
spirulina. I
Okay,
used to use spirulina to feed my
you can mix
brine.
that Schizochytrium with the spirulina, and that's an excellent food. Plus, that DHA is in that schizochitrium, and that's all you need. You don't need a fancy
Mhm.
composite thing.
Mhm.
Um, if you intend to grow the Artemia out to adults for any reason, the spirulina is a great food to do that with. Once
Yeah,
it,
So, but
you
I
that's
want,
do
all I
think
fed
I
mine,
do
other than
think at the end of
enriching.
the day, what I mean, I think that the best piece of advice from this conversation is that if you're gonna try to raise fry or you're gonna try to keep dwarf seahorses, the key is their food. I mean, that's the
Hmm.
hugest key to being successful with them
Hmm.
is making sure that you understand artemia, you understand enrichment, and you understand how to feed them so that they'll actually eat it and it doesn't just become waste in the tank or lose their nutrition before they're eaten and etc. But yeah, I would say especially, absolutely with fry and with Zostre or dwarf seahorses,
Hmm.
you have to really get to know live feeds and
Hmm.
enrichment. Would you guys agree?
Yeah, yeah, I'd say that it's the feeding, the enriching, and it sounds like he's on the right track already. He has some of these things, and he has experience in live foods and raising stuff. He's
Awesome.
a Celcon already, so high DHA, and then spirulina is all I ever fed my brine shrimp. When I was raising brine shrimp, they just ate spirulina until I was ready to enrich them. And I just added a little bit of the spirulina, enough to make their water green, and let them just eat that for a few days or however long. And then, when I needed some, I'd enrich them as needed.
The other trick that I want us to briefly touch upon, guys, is peroxide. So we're
Hmm.
talking about how the live feed is so important. Enriching the live feed is so important. How do we use peroxide with live feeds? Holly?
if you're talking amounts and that, I don't even remember anymore now.
No, I'm just talking in general.
Yeah, so basically, I don't remember the amount off the top of my head. I have it in my notes somewhere, but basically, you add a little bit of peroxide to the salt water that you're going to use to clean the brine shrimp in. So I would use like a little fish bowl thing with a quart or so of water, a little bit of peroxide in it, and then you turn on your bubbler for I think a minute and a half,
I think it's
and
something
then
like that.
you turn it off for 3.5 minutes and let the brine shrimp just swim around in the peroxide water. So they get a total of 5 minutes in the peroxide treated water, and then you rinse them off and feed them, or not
So
feed them to your
Well,
seahorses.
so and that's a good point in question though, because the way I always understood it, it's been a long time, guys,
Hmm.
since I did fry, since Holly did fry, since Ray did fry,
Hmm.
or dwarfs. So, we can help you, we can get you the information, but sometimes right on the spot, it's
I
like,
have it
well,
here.
this is
I'll
what
look
we
it up.
do. But I believe you're supposed to do the peroxide and cleaning of the artemia before you enrich them, if
No,
I'm not
you
mistaken.
enrich them first, and cleaning them is the last step.
So it's to get,
Because otherwise, you're just getting them dirty again. Think about it. When you give them the enrichment, that makes them dirty.
that
So
makes them really,
you want them
really
to
good
get
for them.
enriched. So you want them to eat their enriched foods. So
Okay.
they're enriched, and then you clean them real quick before you add them to the tank.
Okay. Okay.
Because the enrichment makes the
It's been a
water
minute.
dirty, right? Think
Right. And
about
I
it. The
get that.
enrichment
I get the
water is
point.
dirty.
Right, and and the explanation would be just like if you were using an enrichment that would that was just soaking into skin of something,
Mhm.
and you throw it in the tank and it comes off in the tank and it's just organics, right? So you're letting the Artemia actually eat it, ingest it, and then, or take it in through their skin, however they take it in.
Mhm.
And then you're cleaning them to get any excess off outside and putting them
Mhm.
in the tank. And I just know that the peroxide thing was a game changer for many of us
Yeah,
when it was
and the
with
way
Fry.
I did it, I have written down what I used was I used 40 volume peroxide from the beauty store, so I didn't have to use as much. So I used 40 volume clear peroxide like you would use if you were dyeing your hair. And I put 60 milliliters of that in 1 liter of water and then did that treatment. Like it's 1.5 minutes with aeration. So I'd put like an air tube in there. So it's mixing the peroxide, the water, and the little shrimp all together for 1.5 minutes. Then you pull out the air tube and let them sit for another 3.5 minutes.
Yep.
And then they're ready to rinse off and put in your tank.
Can
Yep.
you put that link on for me?
What do you
I
mean
don't
link?
have a link. I have it written down.
Uh,
I wrote down what
but
I did, so it's not a link. I
but
You
can
know what
write
that,
I'll
it in
do,
a
Ray?
private
What
chat.
I'll do
what
is
I just
I'll.
put there, that link to my brine shrimp page.
Oh, yes.
Can
Oh,
you
there
put
you
that
go.
down? 'Cause when I put it down, it doesn't come up.
I
And
got it.
Jaden, this link that we're putting in for my brine shrimp page, it has the peroxide instructions on it.
There you go.
Yeah,
There
because
you
I
go.
think there's different peroxides you can use. So it depends on if you're using like the hair
Yeah,
developer stuff like I did, or if you're using the brown bottle from the drugstore, you need to use a lot more of it, which is why
3%. Yeah, no.
I started getting it at the beauty supply because
You
it's more
always, if you're gonna do
concentrated.
the regular, you want 33%, not 3.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
have a good night, love you. But yeah, no, I mean, I think key, like, I'm glad you came tonight, and refresh when you get set up. We'd love to have you come in the actual video on a Wine Wednesday and talk about how your experience is going for you. Um, but with fry or dwarf seahorses, I definitely think feeding is the key. I mean, that is the key. You can do the tank in so many different ways, and you can go, you actually want to go smaller, whereas with normal seahorses you want to go larger. But it's the feed. You got to have really healthy food for them. You've got to put it in their faces, and you have to make sure it's clean and not
Hmm.
introducing any bacterial issues.
And then
Agreed?
change it out frequently. Like Ray was
Yes.
saying, you got to remove what they don't eat and give them another dose of fresh food. How long does it take for the enrichment to wear off, Ray? Like when you
well,
feed
I've seen a few different studies on. Nobody seems to know exactly for sure, at least that is publishing studies that I would accept.
Yeah, scientific.
Most
Right.
of the people are basically taking anecdotal information and putting it down as fact.
Right.
And for me, I'm a believer it's not fact until science has proved it. And I
it?
don't mean this fake science.
Hmm.
I mean a real science.
Yeah.
Anyway, if he has any questions anytime and we're not on air here, he can always message me on Messenger and ask me there. Uh,
But
I
in
think
answer to the question, Ray, there's no documentation of how long enriched
no,
Artemia stays enriched.
not that I've ever found. Now,
Okay.
I suspect that there is for the commercial fish raising, and shrimp industry, because they use Artemia in
Hmm.
that, and they do enrichment in it. But whether it's a case of they don't care how long it is, because with their process, it's going to be used up before
Yeah.
Sure.
it's ever going to run out. So it's a case of uh, there's not enough
Need.
real need to know exactly how long it's going to last.
Hmm.
Uh,
Right.
I generally accept a couple hours as the fact. That's why with the dwarfs, for instance, I set the timer for 2 hours to start filtering out at that time.
So
But
so you've
I
enriched your
honestly can't
you've
sit there and
enriched
say I
your
have any facts.
artemia. Hang on, you've enriched your artemia. You add it to the tank. You set a timer. 2 hours later, you start removing it.
Yeah,
Okay,
but
gotcha.
that was just personal choice because I don't have any statistics to back up that
Sure.
2 hours is the point.
The other question I have is, did you try to hone in on amounts? Meaning, I understand what you just said. After 2 hours, you remove what's uneaten. But then, would you feed less the next time, or no?
No,
Like with adult seahorses, that's how I figure out what they eat. I feed them, I watch them,
no,
and
because
then I
with dwarf
adjust.
with dwarfs you have to have more than they're going to eat
I get
for,
that.
for them to be able to snack on it. And
But did you
so if
ever
if
say,
you start
okay, I
cutting back,
removed but did you say I removed this much food? So I'm going to hone it down a little bit, still way more than they'll eat, but now I'm only removing this much food. Does that make sense?
no, you don't cut back. When
Okay.
if you
So you
cut back,
just cloud the tank. Okay.
yeah, if you cut back, you're not going to have sufficient density
Got it.
in there in the tank anymore.
Okay.
So, Kelly, I just posted a link if you can share it.
Yeah.
Um, this is the Dwarf Seahorses Help and Advice page. And this is our friend in Great Britain that writes the Seahorse Care books. I have one of his books for the big seahorses. Was it Martin Fletcher
Yep.
or Chris? Yeah, so that's and they have a lot of helpful stuff on that. I belong to that group and the regular seahorse group, and I don't keep dwarf seahorses, but there's a lot of good information on here from people who do. Keep in mind, he's located in Great Britain, but you can figure out most of the stuff applies to us too. And he does have a book. Like I have his book for the bigger seahorses, the Erectus, that was really helpful to me when I was starting out. And he has one on dwarf seahorses too.
Mike French?
The author is Mike
It's not
French.
actually
Yeah.
Martin that wrote the book.
No, it's Mike
Yeah, it's
French.
Mike French. I was just reading it. Yeah, so it's Mike French is the author, and he's one of the admins on the
The
group.
problem now is
And
that
so they
Mike
have
French's
good
book is kind of
information.
dated.
Yeah, I would agree. And the
Yeah.
thing is that I have so much
Well,
respect.
he keeps updating them though. He has newer
So I
ones.
really
So
respect Mike French and Martin Fletcher, and great group they're running. We've just butted heads quite a few times over methods because they don't like.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, they have things are a little different there though. They have access to different stuff that we
Mm-hmm.
do, but pretty much it's the same stuff that we talk about here they talk about there,
Mm-hmm.
so I haven't really run into anything too different other than that sometimes their measurements are different or they have different products
Sure.
available. Like they'll have the same chemical thing but it's called something different there, that
What I've
kind of
noticed
thing.
with them is that they're way more about natural setups
Hmm.
versus understanding when you need more sterile setups. But I still think it's a
I
great
don't know.
resource.
Everything on here for the dwarfs that I'm seeing is the same plastic stuff that I
Good. Maybe they're
use.
coming
So,
around. Maybe they're coming around.
no, I think so. No, everything I see on these is pretty much the same way we would do it.
Good.
On the main
Okay.
Yeah,
on his main site,
so far.
I interact with Martin all the time, and I've never had a problem.
No, yeah, no, I'm not trying to indicate there's a problem.
Yeah.
I have so much respect for both of them. Yeah, no, they're great. Tom Hornsby was great too. I love our friends in the UK. They're amazing. And definitely, Holly, I'm
Hmm.
so glad that you shared the group because yeah, absolutely. I'm a member. I'm not on Facebook
Yeah,
much, but
because I'm curious sometimes. I mean, that's another thing I've considered after I'm done keeping the big ones and vacationing and all that. I might want to try a little, just because it's so much smaller scale. The water changes instead of hauling buckets like I do now. I could use a
you mean for
pitcher.
dwarfs?
Yes.
Yeah, but and I'm not trying to
I could stick
dissuade
them in a
you
fish
refresh.
bowl.
But for me, the reason I never did dwarf seahorses, I love fry, but I'm raising them into big,
They are
huge,
tiny.
strong seahorses. When you're talking about dwarfs, the first strike for me is that
Mhm.
they're hard to see and find. Instead of
They're
them
little.
swimming up to the glass and being like, "Mom, you're home." And yes, they just want food,
Uh,
but they're dancing for me. The adult seahorses do that stuff. The dwarfs don't.
they have a
The
lot
dwarfs
more
don't give a shit about you.
personality.
They're
Yeah.
like, no.
The,
The other thing is all the live feeds. Like I've never cared for live feeds. If you're someone who loves that, it's right up your alley. But for me, that's the thing I hated even about raising fry is just constantly having to keep the not only the live feed going, but the enrichment and the
enrich
different
them,
steps.
that,
It's
all
such
that.
a like if you have a smaller house, in a smaller area, where are you doing this? You have to have light to hatch artemia. You have to have, it's just spacing and the live feeds. I'm not a live feed person. A lot of people love it. Good for you if you do.
Mhm.
Not for me. And then just they don't live as long as the adult species. Again, to each their own, no problems. I'm just telling you why I haven't
Mhm.
done them yet and why, Holly,
There's
I don't
Sophie.
see you loving it as much.
I did them years ago. I had dwarfs for a brief time years ago, and I liked them. But yeah, they're very different from the erectus, from the bigger seahorses. Yeah, but they are so cute. They're
They
really
are. They're
tiny. Like
beautiful.
they're
They're
a little bit bigger
sparkly.
than
Oh
my
my God.
thumbnail.
Right. But I mean,
And yeah,
do you have to
they're
find
they're
them?
like fry. They're the size of my erectus seahorse's fry.
Right. I mean, like, that's what I'm saying is you go up to the tank and don't you have to like find them?
Well, I had them like Ray said. I had mine in a little container,
Okay.
so I didn't have any trouble finding them. What I had trouble with, which you have to be aware of, and this is why you probably don't want macros with them, is that when I got mine, they came in a package deal with macros and some other things, and they were contaminated with
Oh,
hydroids,
yes.
and that was their
Right.
downfall. So that's why we keep their tanks, I know now, so sterile, is because they're very susceptible to pests because they're so tiny. Like the hydroids that wouldn't really bother a larger animal will kill
Right.
them.
And no,
So
fantastic point, Holly. Because you're right.
so that's
I've
something to
had
be
hydroids
aware of
in
we
my
didn't
seahorse
mention
tanks,
earlier.
and it sucks. But hydroids with fry or with dwarfs, I literally had a fry tank where somehow hydroids got in because I wasn't being careful. And I remember I've got a picture somewhere of literally a hydroid, and the fry is like I'm sorry, I don't mean to be negative or gross or whatever, but the whole fry head is in the hydroid's mouth on the side of the
Oh,
glass, and it's like terrible. I mean, they can kill them, right? Whereas if you're
yeah,
talking about
yeah,
larger species adult seahorses, it's a sting. It's not cool. They don't like it,
yeah.
but it's
It's past, but yeah, it's not killing
but
them.
great point, Holly, is that's why it's so difficult. When I did my fry in my macro tank, I'd had those macros going for a very long time. I will tell you, I kept one fry alive out of the many, And then I actually tried to do a second batch of fry in that macro tank again, and I got 2 more to be alive. And so I had 3 fry out of 2 batches of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. They became adolescents, they started to grow up, and then those are the seahorses that you will see if you go back in my videos and see me treating for a bacterial infection. They ended up getting a bacterial infection in this tank because you just never know when you're adding macros and all the other stuff what's coming in. It's just harder to keep control of, I guess is the way I would put it.
Hmm.
But
Yeah, they're more susceptible to pests because they're so tiny.
so
But yeah, they're tiny, but I think they're cute. They do lack the personality, like we were saying, but they're cute little
well,
critters.
we're gonna see Holly have a tank of dwarfs here in a few years. Watch.
I don't know. We'll see. Like you said, I'm not crazy about the live food idea either, but if I have more time and not as many pets and things going on, I might be willing to take the plunge. Who knows?
Gotcha. I was just reading the comments. I see you there, Zen. How you doing? Where we at in our quest? And I see Sophie. Sophie joined us even though she's traveling back home. Nice.
Yeah, on the road.
Hey, so I do want to back up a minute though, for a refresh and say to each their own, right? Like, we can give advice based on our experiences. Ray can give a lot more advice based on years and years and years of experience and working with scientists. So we always kind of,
Hmm.
go to Ray for the scientific explanations, the, feeding regimens and stuff like that. Holly and I have kept seahorses for a long time, so we share what we know. But that's
Okay,
not to
just to
say
qualify that,
you don't set up,
I
like,
only kept
if you
dwarfs
were
for
gonna
just
do,
over 2
hang on,
years.
Ray, hang on, let me finish and then I'll let you talk, I promise. But if you want to do natural and macros and dwarfs, what I would suggest right off the bat is do the tank with the macros first. Get it set up the way you want it so that when you have it to the point where you know there's no aptasia. You've kept it long enough. You've fed the tank. You've made sure that there's no aptasia. Hydroids haven't sprung up. All the pests that we're talking about haven't sprung up. And then add your dwarfs and don't add any more macro. Stick with what you have. So you eliminate, the whole point is eliminating the possibility of anything that can hurt them, if that makes sense. Ray, what were you saying?
So Kelly, what do you think about, how you can buy now like the clean macros that have been
I would
I
absolutely
forget the
trust them
word for
more.
that.
I would absolutely trust them more. They're not as cool and exotic as the ones you can get from Gulf Reef Ecosystem, right? And those are the ones I
Mm,
liked. But yeah, I mean, if you buy
yeah,
clean
yeah.
macros, you have a much better chance of not having problems. But I would still, with any macros, I always say, if you're
Mhm,
going to do macros in a seahorse tank, set up the macros in a crappy tank ahead of time.
mhm,
Give it
mhm.
light, give it food. You have to give it food because if you don't feed the tank of
So the
macros,
pests come
the
out.
aptasia won't come
Mhm,
out, right? They're going to stay hidden and hibernating.
mhm,
Feed the tank, give it light, make sure there's no critters, and then you're in a much better position. But when you're talking
mhm,
about clean macros, I would feel much better about adding them, but nothing's ever 100%. You know what I mean? Like it's just,
mhm,
it's not because they might be calling it clean macros because they can guarantee there's no aptasia or hydroids. There's no physical pests. But if they have it in a system that is sharing water
or if
with
somebody
reefs,
handled it that touched something
yeah,
and
I
got
mean,
it
there's
in their
always what
bag
ifs,
or
but
something.
in a more generic and broad aspect, if that tank of clean macros is sharing water with a reef tank or with anything else, then the bacteria,
Mhm,
you have no idea, right? Any fish in those
mhm,
tanks, anything in those tanks is the macros being affected by it and could carry in
Mm-hmm.
bacterial problems that you don't know about. So I'm not saying,
Mm-hmm.
I am saying I would trust it more. I'm not saying anything's 100% ever. And Ray, what were you trying to say when I cut you off?
Uh, oh,
I know I made you forget.
I only kept dwarfs for a little over 2 years, so it's not like I've been in it for 10 years.
What'd
But
you
to
say?
me, I kept them for that time, and I guess basically I got fed up with it because it was no different than looking after the fry of the bigger ones.
Yep.
And I
Right.
was
Yeah.
always, because I was raising and selling them, uh, it was something I was doing anyway. And I just got ticked off at the extra. And then with the fact that their lifespan was so short, and then for a
They
while,
do only live 2 years, whereas the adults,
well, basically on average, they only live in a year and a half.
right.
If they
And
live two
then,
years, that's an
Mm-hmm.
exception. And
right.
a lot of them will
Whereas
only
we're
live
talking about
about a
Holly's
year.
seahorse that's 5 years old. Right.
Yeah. But
Mm-hmm.
they'll stop reproducing before they hit a year usually. And I didn't know that at first. And when I first hit that year old mark with ones that when I got them, uh, I assumed at that point they were probably a few months old anyway. So it wasn't even a year into it when all of a sudden I'm not getting any production now.
Mm-hmm.
I actually had to go and get some drawers I had to buy back from someone that I sold them just to get some reproducing ones to get started again.
Oh, wow. That's awful. Um, yeah.
Well, back then,
Wow.
nobody told you these things that they're going to stop
Yeah.
producing.
Right. Well, and again, it depends on what you're trying to do. If you're not trying to reproduce, then it doesn't really matter. But just keeping all these things in mind, you can make your decisions based on the knowledge. Nobody's saying anything's right or wrong.
That might be to my advantage. I might be fed up after a year and a half,
Right.
Kelly.
Right.
I'll be like, oh yeah, all that live food. Oh, I forgot how that was.
Right. Which the adult larger species aren't as much trouble. But what were you going to say, Ray? I thought you raised your hand. No? I thought you raised your
No, I
hand
scratch
like
my
you wanted
nose.
to talk. Oh, okay.
I'm always
Sorry.
scratching my
But
nose.
what he had said in the beginning was he only had dwarf seahorses for about 2 years because then he got fed up.
Well, and Zen just made the comment.
So that's what I was saying. I'm all, maybe that'll be
Right.
me.
Zen made the comment, I don't want to get attached to something that doesn't live more than a year or so, and I have to baby them the whole time. Seems like the juice is worth the squeeze. Right. I mean, and I'm right there with you, but there's many people that love keeping the dwarf seahorses. They don't want a long term commitment, right? They just
Yeah.
want, their
Mhm.
tank for now. And there's nothing wrong with that. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but I'm right there with you, Zen. Um,
The unfortunate part with seahorses, there's a lot of people that get into it just because it's not common and they want to be known as someone that got into seahorses. And unfortunately, that type of person doesn't have enough interest in making a success of it. So they end up losing the seahorses.
Mhm.
I'm trying to look at Zen's question. She's talking about her.
Oh, she's cleaning algae
Okay, and what's going on with the
in
hair
one of her
algae?
tanks. Oh, she's just saying she has algae. I have that in my freshwater tanks too. I have this moss algae that grows everywhere and it gets in the plants that I like. It tries to take over the tank, so I'm harvesting handfuls out like every few weeks.
So, one of the things we
She does freshwater tank for people who don't know. She's
gotcha,
doing freshwater.
and fresh water might be different. One of the things that people don't know about reef tanks and saltwater tanks is that when you set up, we've got the nitrogen cycle, right? If you don't know what the nitrogen cycle is, you need to go back and figure it out before you set up a tank. Um, But we've got the nitrogen cycle, but we also have an algae cycle, right? And you will typically, and I know people have argued this, we found ways around it. But if you're going the natural route, you're going to go through green, brown, red algae stages, right? And so sometimes you're beating your head against a wall for nothing. But in Zen's case, this tank's not new, right? And you have hair algae, even with plants, ammonium nitrites or nitrates. I'm sorry, don't help as much as they should. Well, and you've made a great point though, and
Yeah,
that's the bottom line: is every time you do a water change, even though you're trying to help, you're just adding more nitrites or nitrates, excuse me, and causing the problem.
that's probably my thing too because I use the tap water in my freshwater tanks, and I just use that bottled treatment to get rid of the is it
Yep.
chloramines is what we have in my water. So I use that. But other than that, it's straight tap water because I would have to treat it too much if I use the RODI water in the freshwater tank. It's the wrong
pH.
pH, I want to say. I forget when. I think you're right. I think it's the pH is so far off that I'd have to really doctor
I
it. So it's
remember,
easier to
and
just use.
it's been even longer since I did freshwater tanks, guys. So Zen, you're gonna correct me here, but I'm gonna say I remember when I kept discus, and they're freshwater fish that need um, soft water. Okay, and so I would take my really hard ass, 400 TDS tap water and try to run it through RDI and try to do all this, that, and the other. I ended up just buying distilled water. I would add buffer in to get the pH right. I would add the tannic or tannin stuff to make it soft water, and I just spent a
Mhm.
lot of money, but I did all artificial water in
Yeah.
that tank, and it worked. They bred for me, everything was great, but yeah, I could never have used tap water in that tank. And it does depend on what fish you're talking about. You're talking about cichlids. Oh my God, Sean had cichlids in our tap water with some prime. I mean, and they
Mhm.
did great.
That's all Scott and I ever used with most of our freshwater
Yeah.
fish. And we didn't treat it or anything. The goldfish, they get water right out of the hose.
See,
But my freshwater tank, because I have different kinds of fish now, I'm more careful with them. But most of our fish over the years in our freshwater tanks were like the cichlids. They just took water
yep,
right out of the hose. It's like, here you go.
yep. It depends on what they can handle, what they need, what they are, I guess.
What your water's
Yeah.
like where you live.
So many
Yeah.
things, so many things. Did you guys, I did say we had to make this shorter tonight, and we're already running about the same time. So go figure.
Well, I guess we found enough to
We
talk
always do.
about.
We
We were
always
worried about
do.
that in the
Yes.
beginning.
And
Yeah.
so good to see new people coming. That's really awesome. But any other questions for tonight? Of course, we'll be back next week. If there ever is a guest, whenever we have guests, I will make sure that you guys know ahead of time. So if you don't see an ad for a guest, then it's open chat. And for anybody new, make sure you're on the Facebook page, Seahorse Whisperer Group, so that if I post something, you guys know it. But for tonight, did we have any other questions that we missed? Ray, anything you wanted to say?
No, nothing here.
All right. All right. Well, it's very, very cool to have new people coming. Good to see you, Zen. Good to see you, Sophie. We'll be glad to have you back next week. But for tonight, guys, let's say Happy Wine Wednesday and come back next week. Sound good? All right.
Okay, night
Happy
all.
Wine Wednesday.